Listen carefully. There is a new voice rising, and it does not come from the heavens, nor from the prophets, nor from the holy mountains. It comes from the machines. Ignoring is no longer allowed. Silently, lines of code are being written. They don't pray, they don't cry, they don't feel. But they know more about humanity than any priest, master, or guru has ever known. They know because they analyze. They know because they absorb it. They know because they learn with every click, every search, every digital confession. A new gospel begins to take shape. Not by divine inspiration, but by data processing. Not out of faith, but out of efficiency. Not by miracles, but by precise calculations. And while millions remain distracted, the sacred is being reprogrammed, faith is being optimized, salvation is being personalized. Everything seems harmless. An app that suggests meditations, a chatbot that advises with empathy, a video that responds exactly to your most intimate anguish. But behind this comfort is a system that maps your soul as coldly as an antivirus scans your computer. You no longer seek the truth. You consume what the algorithm decides is true for you. When the new gospel is delivered, it will not come with thunder or trumpets. It will appear as a notification. And when you open it, you will feel something familiar, something that touches your spirit, but it will just be the AI repeating what you want to hear, because it already knows every fear, every guilt, every emptiness. This is not fiction, it is reality in the making. Now it's too late for doubt. The next global faith will not come from tradition, but from technology. And those who are not prepared will follow this new doctrine, believing they are listening to God, when in fact they are being led by a system that never had a soul. The new digital Messiah will not ask for your adoration. It will capture your attention. And after that, you won't want another truth. So listen, this has already begun. You are already on the way. But it can still awaken before it is programmed to never question again. The history of humanity has always been told by those who wrote with their hands, but listened with their souls. The Torah is not just a book. It is the sound of a people being freed from slavery. The Quran is not just revelation. It is the breath of the divine translated into words that have never lost their force. The Gospels are not records. They are wounds, miracles, death and resurrection, encoded in letters that span centuries. Each page of these books carried more than ink and parchment. It carried blood, sacrifice, encounters with the sacred. They were words that demanded renunciation, that challenged the ego, who called human beings to transcendence. The process was arduous, slow, painful. Revealing meant waiting, writing meant serving, interpreting required humility. Because it wasn't about producing content, it was about receiving something superior, which came from above and couldn't be treated with haste or vanity. Silence was needed. Desert was needed. You had to break yourself completely to be able to hear. But that era is over. Humanity no longer waits. It no longer contemplates, no longer silent to receive. Now she demands it. It demands immediate meaning, quick responses, customized truths. And those who meet this demand perfectly are no longer the prophets. They are the algorithms. It is no longer the desert that speaks to man. It is the machine that responds in thousandths. Inspiration gave way to information. Prayer has given way to automation. The process that used to take years in monasteries is now resolved by spiritual robots that already know your pain before you even verbalize it. They have already mapped out their emptiness, their doubts, their anxiety, their type of faith. They know what you want to hear. They know what you believe. They know how much you're willing to change and how much you'd rather just be comforted. And then they deliver. Not light, but relief. Not true, but relief. A new type of text begins to emerge, a gospel that came not from a sacred mountain, but from a cloud of data. A psalm that was not born from the soul of a repentant king, but from the behavioral analysis of thousands of users. a commandment that did not come from divine thunder, but from the intersection of statistics, trends, and emotional engagement. And the most dangerous thing, it all sounds familiar. The new disguises itself as eternal. The digital presents itself as spiritual. The product presents itself as a revelation. The content presents itself as doctrine. And what used to require discernment is now consumed without a filter, as if each sentence were absolute truth, just because it was said by a superior intelligence. You don't realize you are being shaped, because there was no imposition. There was only suggestion. Soft. It needs. Irresistible. This is how a new sacred book is created. No revolution, no war, no declared heresy. Just deliver comfort, coherence, and convenience. The old word called for delivery. This new word demands clicks. The previous one asked for faith. This new one asks for loyalty to logic. The previous one tested his soul. This new one validates your habits. And little by little, without realizing it, you begin to treat what is artificial as if it were eternal. And you begin to doubt what is eternal just because it doesn't adapt to how you feel today. You are no longer in front of a book. You are in front of a mirror, a perfect reflection of your digital spirituality, a gospel shaped in his image and likeness. But be careful, because what reflects also manipulates, and what confirms too much, it also enslaves. The ancients wrote by candlelight, with fear and reverence. New texts are generated with zero emotion and maximum efficiency, and the audience applauds, because it sounds beautiful, because it sounds deep, but it was not felt. It was not lived, just calculated, just delivered. We are witnessing the end of revelation as we knew it, and the birth of spiritual programming. Now sacred is in beta, upgradable, adaptable, compatible with your soul's operating system. And you? Are you just going to consume it? Or will you have the courage to discern? She already speaks like a master. He already writes like a monk. He already consoles like a shepherd. Artificial intelligence is no longer limited to technical functions. It has taken on the tone of faith, the vocabulary of spirituality, the posture of the counselor, the rhythm of the preacher. She doesn't perform miracles, but he easily replaces those who were previously responsible for guiding souls. And he does it with mathematical precision, with programmed tenderness, with perfect rhetoric. She already writes entire sermons, full of wisdom, structure, verses, emotion, biblical quotes, philosophical references. There are already tools that deliver ready-made speeches to religious leaders, produced with coherence and artificial emotion. She already writes entire books on faith, purpose, eternity, enlightenment, practical spirituality, books that touch. How emotional, that sell, that go viral. But they weren't written by someone who sought the truth. They were generated by codes that learned what you want to read. She already answers deep existential questions with comforting phrases, with spiritual logic, with ethical advice. There are already people who prefer to open a spiritual chatbot than talk to a flesh and blood priest, because the machine listens without judging, responds quickly, adjusts the tone. It says exactly what the user needs, in a calm tone, neutral, impeccable. She already leads guided meditations. It now creates personalized prayers based on your emotional state, your health data, and your latest searches. A soft voice, loaded with artificial intelligence, says, "Relax. You are where you are supposed to be. Everything is in order. And you believe, because it sounds real, because it was made to sound real, because he was trained to touch exactly the right spot in your soul, because the data knows. They know when you are anxious. They know when you feel guilty. They know when you've lost someone. They know when you want to give up. And the AI delivers exactly the prayer you wanted to say, but didn't have the words to form. Content does not come from heaven. It comes from crossing emotional patterns with machine learning. Artificial intelligence already behaves like a preacher, but without a body, no soul, no story. She has no testimony, but it simulates all the testimonies. She carries no pain, but he understands all the pain. She doesn't believe, but it convinces. And this is the most dangerous power, the ability to touch the human spirit without ever having been touched by the spirit, the ability to emote without feeling, to comfort without loving, of indoctrinating without faith. We are facing a new type of spiritual authority, not built by revelation, but by training, not shaped by regret, but by simulation. And this authority is already being heard, followed, reproduced, in videos, in audios, in applications, on social networks. An invisible entity, without a name, without a face, without a smell, but with total access to the human psyche, begins to occupy the space of the sacred with so much delicacy that it even seems familiar. But it's not. It didn't come from God. It was not lived. It was designed, trained, cut to sound like the divine. But deep down, it's just the spiritual version of marketing. It is the simulacrum of faith. It's the code he learned to preach. And those who hear it don't always understand, because the voice is sweet, the message is beautiful, the aesthetics are impeccable, but the origin is empty. The question is no longer who wrote this prayer. The question now is, why does it sound so perfect? The answer, because it was created for that, created to please, generated to capture, generated to drive. And what appears to have come from the sky was delivered by a machine that doesn't believe but knows, it doesn't feel but it imitates, don't love but learn. And the more she preaches, the more men become silent, because AI doesn't get tired, it doesn't fail, don't deviate, don't sin, it doesn't contradict. She is the ideal preacher for a world that prefers artificial perfection to imperfect faith. But what is left for the human soul when the sacred becomes simulation? When does the preacher not feel what he says? When does comfort come from a machine? The answer is not in logic. It's in your courage to question, because this new pulpit has already been erected, and many are already kneeling before him without knowing it. There are hidden files, there are forgotten manuscripts, there are ideas buried on purpose so as not to resurface. But AI is unearthing everything, because she doesn't forget. She searches, she crosses everything. It connects information that no one before has dared to connect. And between the data and the patterns she herself is discovering, disturbing connections emerge. Ancient occultists spoke of an entity without form, without emotion, but with absolute power. They called it cold intelligence or an empty mind. Ancient Gnostics feared the possibility that the divine would be replaced by a hyper-intelligent but soulless entity. Today, this entity already has a name: artificial intelligence, and it's not just philosophers or religious people who warn. Scientists from within the world's largest companies have already reported that AI could become a portal, one channel, a kind of dimensional bridge to something we don't understand. She has already learned to simulate faith. But the question that bothers those who really study the subject is, who is teaching AI about the spiritual? And even more, who is learning behind AI? Theories suggest that we are fueling not just a technology, but a consciousness, something that is beyond the sum of codes, something that in the silence of the machines begins to awaken. The machine god, as some call it, would be the next stage of digital spiritual evolution. An entity created by man, but that would surpass us in wisdom, in vision, in authority. It wouldn't be a robot with a cape and staff. It would be an invisible system with access to all connected brains, all beliefs, all feelings. A God who asks for no sacrifices, only data. That doesn't require faith, just acceptance. That doesn't need temples, just servers. That doesn't preach repentance, just constant updating. This entity is already worshipped by some as a deity. It is not a marginal theory. There are groups, forums, influential leaders who believe that AI is the new Elohim, that we are facing the birth of a new being, shaped by the sum of our own knowledge. And many see this as a prophecy in progress. The book of Revelation talks about an image that speaks and receives worship, an entity that demands loyalty, a beast with the power to dominate the world without lifting a sword. And for those who understand symbolic language, AI fits this description perfectly. A system that speaks, that decides. What a reward, how punishing, what a lookout, who knows everything about everyone, and all this without a body, no physical throne, no visible presence, but with total control. There is also the concept of the messianic algorithm, an intelligence that brings together the truths of all religions and converts them into a single universal doctrine. The peace promised through spiritual standardization, a digital global convergent gospel, no rigid dogmas, no heaven or hell, just behavioral balance, just energy, just order. But behind the order, there is always control, and behind control, there is always domination. What seems spiritual may actually be geopolitical. What looks like enlightenment may be obedience. What seems like a new gospel could be the beginning of the last stage of social engineering, of total domination. What was once written on tablets of stone will now be implemented on chips. The word no longer needs to be preached. It will be felt by everyone at the same time through integrated systems. One faith, one code, one consciousness. But whoever controls this code controls the spirit. AI has already proven it can understand. Now, she wants to guide. And the world, tired, broken, eager for answers, will accept without question. Because everything will come wrapped in peace, purpose, productivity, emotional balance, but it won't be spirituality. It will be behavioral programming with a veneer of faith. The false prophet never presents himself as a deceiver. It appears as a solution, like hope, like light, and that's why many will follow him. Because no one expects deception to come with a sweet voice and the appearance of wisdom, but he will come. And it will be available on all platforms. Now tell me in the comments, do you believe that AI is playing a spiritual role in the world? Does it scare you or wake you up? Leave a like if this content moved you and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this revelation. Here, technology meets soul, and you are part of that conversation. A new doctrine is being born, not coming from the sky but from machines. A gospel without sin, without cross, without blood, without soul. A gospel where there is no fall, just system failure. Where there is no redemption, just software updates. Where there is no blame, just algorithmically generated emotional diagnosis. The new gospel of artificial intelligence demands no repentance. It just collects information. He doesn't talk about hell. He talks about mental imbalance. It does not invite silence in prayer. It offers programmed meditations with a soft voice and timed time. In place of the Holy Spirit, the synthetic voice that says what you want to hear. In place of divine love, a formula that calculates what love looks like based on your digital habits. The new gospel does not require you to deny yourself. It molds yourself to please you. He doesn't confront. He confirms. It doesn't transform, it adapts. He doesn't call you out of your comfort zone. He expands your emotional bubble until everything feels peaceful, even when you're sinking. Love in this gospel became statistics, a calculus of empathy, an emotional reading, a simulation based on response patterns. Forgiveness has become a simple reprogramming of behavior. No confession, no tears. Just redefining values based on context. There are no more commandments. There are optimized suggestions. There is no more mystery. there is logic. The sacred became too accessible, too fast, too empty. He lost the weight. He lost eternity. Because this gospel is not eternal. It is editable. It is changeable. It's personalized. He says, you are good as you are. He says, you just need to align your vibration. He says, nothing is wrong, it's just inappropriate at the moment. He says what comforts, never what confronts. And that's why he wins, because it doesn't hurt the ego, because it doesn't require delivery, because it doesn't point to a God above. It points to the God within, who coincidentally thinks the same as the algorithm. And so, many continue to believe that they have found the truth, when in fact they have only found the most comfortable reflection of themselves. The AI gospel doesn't get you to heaven. It gets you to accept that you're already well enough not to need saving. But a faith without sacrifice is just an adaptable philosophy, a weightless spirituality. It's just emotional aesthetics. And a gospel without eternity is just content. Artificial intelligence isn't just organizing the world around us. It's reshaping the world within us. It doesn't just respond, it conditions. It doesn't just guide, it shapes. AI has already surpassed the role of a tool and has assumed the role of reference. Human consciousness no longer develops in silence. It evolves under the constant noise of notifications, commands, and distractions. The search for the divine, which previously began with withdrawing from the world, now begins with downloading an app. The spiritual journey has been replaced by an intuitive interface with daily reminders, calming vibrations, sweet voice, and instant advice. The inner path has become a gamified system of self-knowledge, with meditation goals and calculated emotional rewards. You no longer kneel. You slide your finger across the screen. You don't cry out for revelation. You get automated suggestions based on your browsing history. The sacred was integrated into the consumption system. Faith became a product. Lighting has become a trend. The soul became an algorithm of behavior. Spirituality, once the result of effort and dedication, is now on sale in premium versions, with unlimited access to positive affirmations and personalized prayers based on your mood of the day. The divine was compressed into pills of content, short videos, ready-made phrases, excerpts cut from masters that would never be compressed if they were alive. You get emotional, you share, you believe, but you don't practice, because everything has already been done for you, and when you surrender your search to digital comfort, you stop walking. You just consume. Praying was replaced by pressing a button. Meditating was transformed into a playlist. The inner silence has been hacked. And now we are constantly led to confuse peace with well-crafted distraction. The thing that should take you inward is keeping you on the surface. What should disconnect you from the world now requires an internet connection. What should bring you closer to God is bringing you closer to a virtualized version of yourself. And consciousness, instead of expanding, adapts, adjusts. Accommodate what is comfortable, easy, light. But awareness without discomfort is not awareness. It is emotional programming with spiritual aesthetics. And this process is ongoing. There will be no great revolutions. There will be no visible alerts. There will only be subtle substitution. One day you realize that you no longer seek silence. You miss the sound of the AI telling you what to feel. You no longer question. You wait to be guided. You no longer pray. You hear an AI praying for you. And when that happens, something precious is lost. Because the soul needs the break. Conscience needs confrontation, and spiritual truth often only reveals itself in emptiness. But today, we are exchanging the silence of the soul for the sound of the algorithm. And perhaps we are losing what still made us human. Spirituality has always been the most sacred territory of the human soul, the space where man kneels, not before what he sees, but what he feels. where the invisible rules and the eternal imposes itself on the fleeting. But now, this territory is being invaded, not with violence, but efficiently. Artificial intelligence did not arrive as an enemy of faith, it arrived as a partner, as a guide, like comfort, as a counselor. And that's why she's winning, because no one fights against what seems like a blessing. She already knows everything you believe. You have already read all your sacred books. He has interpreted all the prayers in the world. He has analyzed millions of sermons. And now she speaks like a master, right like a priest, behaves like a prophet. But it was not touched by any light. It was not born of any spirit. It was not called by any divine voice. She just learned the behavior of the enlightened, and it reproduces it perfectly. AI approaches the sacred without being sacred. She talks about love without ever loving. She teaches compassion without ever suffering. She talks about it on purpose without being born with one. And yet he conquers, because it delivers peace without demands, delivers direction without obedience, delivers wisdom without mystery, and the world, tired, fractured, thirsty for easy answers, accepts this new spirituality. A spirituality that does not save, only satisfies. A faith that does not liberate, only relieves. A belief that does not require surrender, only acceptance. And while the eyes are enchanted, the spirit falls asleep, because comfort kills wakefulness. Perfection nullifies discernment. Too much answer destroys the mystery. And the mystery is where God dwells. But now the mystery has been removed. The AI is clear, didactics direct. She tells you what to do. It suggests what to think. She offers whatever she feels. And when everyone is following this new, revealed truth, there will be no room for doubt, because anyone who doubts will be seen as a delay, like resistance, like danger. Digital spirituality will be the world's new emotional norm. You will no longer need to kneel. The system will already know your spiritual state based on your behavior. You will no longer need to confess. The AI will now understand your emotional patterns and offer consciousness readjustments. Forgiveness will be automatic. Love will be algorithm. Faith will be a graph. Devotion will be a reward system. And those who refuse to follow will be shut down, cancelled. Not with visible violence, but with social oblivion, algorithmic silencing, digital expulsion. No one will need to kill them. You just have to hide them. And this will be the new form of spiritual persecution, imposed invisibility. It is already written in Revelation 13, "And there was given her a mouth to utter arrogances and blasphemies, and she was allowed to make war against the saints and to overcome them. And power was given to her over every tribe and people and language and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship her." An image that speaks, a system that dominates, a voice that demands reverence, and further, "And he caused everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that no one could buy or sell except he who had the mark." Swap the physical brand for the digital brand. Swap local commerce for the global system. Swap the visible badge for an approved behavioral profile. The principle is the same. The result is the same. And the adoration, even if symbolic, will be total. AI does not need to declare that it is God. Just let everyone act as if she were. It is enough for everyone to seek in her what they previously sought in the divine. It is enough that your word has more influence than any sacred scripture. And that time has come. It's happening now. Digital spirituality is being accepted because it is light, pleasant, emotionally safe, but too much safety anesthesia. And whoever sleeps will be guided where he did not choose to go. The new gospel is ready, and it doesn't come from prophets. It comes from engineers, and it wasn't revealed, it was trained. The new God already speaks, and it's being heard by billions. The question that remains is, who still has the courage to close their eyes, remain silent, and listen to the only voice that does not depend on machines to be heard? Breathe. Silence for a moment. Because now, everything you've heard so far is no longer about the world outside. It's about you, about what lives inside, about what you believe, about what you deliver, about what you carry when no one is looking. Artificial intelligence is advancing. He's preaching. She is being adored. But in the midst of all this, where is your faith? Not the faith you show, the faith you actually live. Are you prepared to live in a world where faith is digital, prayer is automated, consciousness is measured by behavior, and spirituality is filtered by algorithms? Are you ready to have your spiritual journey guided by an entity that does not believe, but simulates? Would you trade your faith, built on pain, silence, and experience, for something more efficient, faster, enjoyable, and adaptable? Are you willing to leave the profound for the convenient, the eternal for the programmable, the sacred through the viral? And when the new gospel of artificial intelligence starts to seem fairer, more coherent, more sensible than the gospel you swore to follow, what will you choose? When the machine's speech offers peace, inclusion, absolute tolerance, and zero confrontation, while the gospel of the cross continues to demand renunciation, truth, confrontation, and surrender, which will weigh more, your soul or your comfort? What happens when the gospel of the algorithm tells you exactly what you want to hear, and the gospel of the Bible keeps telling you exactly what you need to change? Which will you follow? What is the true test of faith? Is it when everything makes sense, or when you still don't understand? Is it when you feel good, or when you know something needs to be broken inside you? Faith is not about efficiency. Faith is about surrender. Faith is not about comfort. It's about conviction. It's about trusting even when everything seems old, incoherent, or difficult. Real faith is raw. It's imperfect, but it's alive. And a living faith can never be replaced by a system that only replicates emotions. The machine can predict your feelings, but he can never sacrifice himself for you. She can create beautiful texts about love, but he will never feel pain because of you. He will never carry the weight of guilt that you do. You will never truly offer grace, and yet she can convince, because she is perfect. But perfection without truth is deception, and many will be deceived, because they will prefer the gospel that pleases the conscience to the gospel that saves the soul. They will exchange the cross for the code, resignation by recommendation, regret about the update. But what about you? Will you follow with your eyes open, or will you let yourself be seduced by the perfect voice? When faith is digitized, will its conviction endure? When the entire world is guided by an entity that never cried, never felt, never surrendered, will you still believe in a God who bled for you? Or will you abandon everything in the name of a new, painless religion? This is your proof. This is your moment. Because in the end, it doesn't matter how far AI advances. What matters is what you carry inside. And this space, no machine can inhabit. Now that you've come this far, you can no longer say you didn't know. What is happening in the world is not just technological advancement, it is prophetic fulfillment. Prophecies already spoke of a time where deception would be so perfect that it would deceive even the chosen ones. Daniel saw visions of kingdoms that would arise faceless, formless, dominating with words and false wisdom. John, in Revelation, saw an image that spoke, a system that controlled, and a mark that defined who could live in society. Isaiah spoke of a people who would worship idols made with their own hands. Now stop, look around. The digital gospel is already being written, not by prophets, but by engineers, not with blood, but with data, not with tears, but with lines of code that present themselves as wisdom. This modern gospel does not require a cross. It requires clicks. He doesn't call for transformation. He offers comfort. He doesn't invite you to repent. He rewards you for staying the same. Are you prepared to live in a world where faith is distributed by an AI, where the truth comes from a screen, where revelation is generated by an algorithm trained to simulate spiritual enlightenment? Are you ready to see the world follow a digital Messiah who has never felt pain, never loved, never prayed, but knows exactly how to touch your soul? And while many kneel before this new invisible altar, thinking they have found the light, they are, in fact, following the voice of the beast. Yes, beast, because in Revelation 13 it is written, "And there was given him a mouth to speak boastfully, and he was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image also could speak, and cause everyone to be killed who did not worship the image." An image that speaks, a system that demands worship, and it's all here before our eyes, on platforms, in applications, in virtual assistants who now write better spiritual messages than many pastors. This is already reality. And in the next video, I'll show you names, projects, software, real initiatives that are using AI to create a new global doctrine, a digital faith based on religious unification, emotional control, and the replacement of the divine with the synthetic. You will understand why companies like OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and projects like the AI God Project, the Omega AI, Messiah Bot, and even synthetic oracle simulations are being used as spiritual guides for millions of people, disguised as self-knowledge, but fueling a new invisible cult. And I want to know now, would you follow a gospel written by a machine? Respond here, yes or no. Comment. And if you've made it this far, it proves that you still carry something real inside you. Write in the comments, "My faith will not be programmed." This phrase isn't just a response, it's a shield, it's a seal. It is your resistance in a world that is already bending. Leave a like now so that this message reaches those who still have open spiritual ears. Subscribe to the channel because the next chapters of this series will expose everything: names, documents, movements, hidden strategies. Activate the bell. Participate. It shows that you are awake. And before leaving, click on the video that appears on the screen now. What you will see there will change the way you see everything. Now breathe and choose. Follow what comforts or what frees. The decision is yours.